Welcome back. Tonight, we're drifting slowly through the hidden corridors of Five Nights at Freddy's, where beneath the surface of jump scares and survival mechanics lies a world of carefully concealed secrets waiting to be discovered. From shadow figures that appear once in a million attempts to codes hidden in source files, from minigames that reveal fragments of tragedy, to Easter eggs so rare that players debate whether they've truly seen them at all. This franchise has become legendary not just for its horror, but for the way Scott Cawthon wove mysteries into every corner, every pixel, every line of code. Some secrets reward the persistent, others demand perfect timing or pure luck. Many whisper truths about the lore that casual players might never encounter, transforming simple horror games into elaborate puzzles where community collaboration became essential to understanding the full picture. Whether you're settling in for sleep while familiar mysteries wash over you like a gentle tide, actively hunting for details you might have missed across a decade of games, or simply curious about what lies beneath Freddy Fazbear's cheerful exterior, this exploration will carry you through the franchise's most fascinating hidden elements. We'll examine the shadow animatronics whose appearances defy probability, decode the meanings behind cryptic minigames, uncover the messages Scott left in source code for dedicated players to find, and trace the evolution of secrets from the original pizzeria to the sprawling pizzaplex. These aren't just random Easter eggs scattered for fun. They're pieces of a narrative that Scott wanted players to discover together, to theorize about, to slowly assemble into something approaching truth. Before we begin our descent into these digital mysteries, feel free to like and subscribe, but only if you enjoy this kind of detailed, atmospheric exploration that treats gaming secrets with the care they deserve. And let me know in the comments which FNAF secret you found most fascinating, or if you've discovered any obscure details that even dedicated fans might have overlooked. There's always something new to uncover in this franchise. Let's begin. The Shadow Animatronics Mystery. In the second game, among all the threats players face, two figures stand apart from the others, not because they're particularly aggressive or difficult to survive, but because they shouldn't exist at all according to the game's established rules. Shadow Bonnie and Shadow Freddy, collectively known as the Shadow Animatronics, represent some of the rarest and most mysterious secrets in the entire franchise. Their appearances are so improbable that many players complete the game without ever seeing them, and their purpose remains one of the community's most enduring debates. Shadow Bonnie, also known by the peculiar designation RJWQFCSSASSXC, appears in your office with odds that were originally intended to be 1 in a million. Scott Cawthon designed this encounter to be extraordinarily rare, a ghost in the machine that would become the stuff of legend among players. However, due to how the game's random number generation was programmed, using 16-bit integers that overflow at 65,535, the actual odds work out to approximately 1 in 16,384. Still incredibly rare, but more achievable than intended. When Shadow Bonnie manifests, it takes the form of a dark silhouetted figure resembling Toy Bonnie, standing motionless on the left side of the office. Its eyes glow white against the darkness of its form, teeth visible in what might be a grin or grimace. The danger isn't immediate violence. Shadow Bonnie won't scare you in the traditional sense. Instead, if you stare at this apparition too long, the game will crash, forcing you back to the menu screen. The only defense is to quickly don the Freddy mask, treating it like any other threat, though this entity operates by different rules than the possessed animatronics you're used to. The crash itself has become part of the mystery. Is it intentional, representing something so wrong with reality that the game itself can't contain it? Or is it a technical limitation Scott incorporated into the lore? The community has never reached consensus, and Scott himself has remained characteristically cryptic about the Shadow animatronic's true nature. Shadow Freddy presents a different kind of rarity. Rather than appearing in the office, this darkened version of withered golden Freddy materializes in the parts and service camera, but only when specific conditions are met. Every time you lower the camera monitor, the game generates a random number out of 1,000. If that number is 100 or less, and none of the other withered animatronics currently occupy the parts and service room, Shadow Freddy will be sitting there in the darkness. Like its counterpart, this Shadow animatronic has no direct gameplay function beyond its existence. It simply sits, watching, and if you view it for too long, the game crashes just as it does with Shadow Bonnie. The visual presentation of Shadow Freddy tells its own story. This isn't just withered golden Freddy with darker colors. The purple tint it exhibits, the way its eyes glow with an otherworldly intensity, the posture it maintains while sitting in that room full of broken animatronic parts, all combine to create an atmosphere of wrongness. Something about this figure suggests it doesn't belong in the same reality as the other animatronics. It's an echo of something, a shadow cast by events players can only guess at. Theories about the Shadow animatronics have proliferated over the years, though none have been definitively confirmed. One interpretation suggests they could be the spirits of employees who died in spring lock failures, their souls unable to fully possess the suits that killed them, leaving only these dark impressions. This theory gained support after the training tapes revealed spring lock incidents in the series' history. Another perspective proposes they might be manifestations of agony, emotional residue from trauma so intense it imprinted itself on reality independent of any single victim. The fact that they appear as corrupted versions of existing animatronics, specifically Bonnie and Golden Freddy, has led some to theorize they're connected to particularly significant deaths, though concrete evidence remains elusive. In later games, Shadow animatronics continue appearing in various forms. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 brings back Shadow Freddy in the minigames, where it appears to lure the original animatronics to the safe room where William Afton waits to dismantle them. This active role suggests the shadows aren't just ambient haunting, but may have their own agenda. Whether they're helping Afton or helping his victims enact their revenge remains subject to interpretation. The minigame shows Shadow Freddy leading each animatronic one by one, but the underlying motivation isn't explicitly stated. Ultimate Custom Night features both Shadow animatronics as potential threats, though their appearance is controlled by different mechanics. Here, they're not vanishingly rare, but instead summoned through specific gameplay circumstances. Shadow DD, a black and white glitching version of the character, can appear and block portions of your screen. The fact that Scott brought them back in this format, where William Afton experiences his personal hell, suggests the shadows might be connected to his crimes in ways we still don't fully understand. The community has data mined the games extensively, trying to understand these entities, the file names, the code that governs their appearance, the sounds they make. Every detail has been scrutinized, yet Scott designed them in a way that resists easy explanation. They crash the game as if they're glitches, but they're too deliberately animated, too specifically programmed to be accidents. They appear too rarely to be critical to understanding the main plot, yet their presence across multiple games indicates they're more than throwaway Easter eggs. What makes the shadow animatronics particularly fascinating is how they represent Scott's design philosophy. He could have made them common enemies with clear mechanics and purposes. Instead, he made them whispers in the darkness, so rare that seeing them feels like witnessing something forbidden. Players who encounter Shadow Bonnie or Shadow Freddy often second-guess themselves. Did that really happen? Was it a glitch? The rarity creates doubt, and that doubt enhances the horror. These aren't just game assets. They're digital urban legends, creatures that exist in that uncertain space between intentional design and emergent mystery. The shadow animatronics also demonstrate how secrets in Five Nights at Freddy's serve multiple purposes. On one level, they're rewards for players who spend enough time with the games to beat the odds. Encountering these rare entities creates stories players share with the community, cementing their investment in the franchise. On another level, they're lore breadcrumbs, suggesting layers to the tragedy that the main story doesn't explicitly address. And on the most fundamental level, they're atmosphere, reinforcing that something is deeply wrong with these establishments beyond the obvious hauntings. The crashes they cause aren't frustrating because they're so rare and because they don't cost you progress in any meaningful way. Instead, the crash becomes part of the experience, the game itself rejecting these anomalies, unable to contain what they represent. It's a clever bit of design that turns a technical limitation or choice into narrative flavor. The game's reality breaks when confronted with these shadows, just as our understanding of the lore fractures when we try to place them in the timeline. Even now, with dozens of games released and countless lore discussions conducted, the shadow animatronics remain enigmatic. New fans discovering them for the first time experience that same shock of recognition that early players felt. These figures persist across the franchise's evolution, never fully explained, never quite dismissed. They're permanent mysteries, and perhaps that's exactly what they're meant to be. Not every secret needs a definitive answer. Some secrets are more powerful when they remain shadows. Golden Freddy's hidden depths. If the shadow animatronics are whispers in the darkness, Golden Freddy is a scream that refuses to be silenced. From the very first game, this supernatural entity has defied the rules that govern other animatronics, appearing and vanishing according to logic that seems designed specifically to unsettle players. The secrets surrounding Golden Freddy run deeper than almost any other element in Five Nights at Freddy's, with each game adding new layers to the mystery while refusing to provide complete answers. In the original game, Golden Freddy's appearance is triggered through one of the franchise's most famous mechanics. As you monitor the cameras, there's a chance that the poster in the West Hall will transform. It usually shows Freddy with a microphone in a celebrate pose, but sometimes, if you're watching at just the right moment, the image shifts to a close-up of Golden Freddy's face. The change is accompanied by a child's laughter, a sound that's both innocent and deeply unsettling given the context. When you lower the monitor after seeing this poster, Golden Freddy will be sitting in your office. The appearance is shocking because it breaks established rules. Golden Freddy doesn't move through the building like other animatronics. It doesn't appear on cameras traveling toward your location. It simply manifests, a slumped figure in the darkness of your office, existing in direct violation of everything you've learned about how the game's threats operate. The only defense is to immediately raise the monitor again. Do this fast enough, and Golden Freddy vanishes. Wait too long, and the jump scare triggers, but it's not a normal jump scare. The screen fills with Golden Freddy's face, the game freezes, and then crashes completely, forcing you back to your desktop or console menu. The odds of seeing the Golden Freddy poster were intended to be 1 in 100,000, making it extraordinarily rare. However, due to the same 16-bit integer limitation that affects Shadow Bonnie, the actual probability works out to approximately 1 in 32,768, still rare enough that many casual players never encounter it naturally, but achievable for dedicated fans. The rarity was clearly intentional. Scott wanted Golden Freddy to feel like a legend, something players might hear about but couldn't reliably experience. The poster only changes when Bonnie isn't in the West Hall camera, adding another layer of prerequisite to the occurrence. Beyond the random appearance, players discovered another way to encounter Golden Freddy. In the custom night mode, if you set the difficulty values for all animatronics to 1, 9, 8, 7, spelling out the year of the bite of 87, and then start the night, Golden Freddy's jump scare immediately triggers, crashing the game. Scott added this Easter egg specifically to address false rumors spreading through the community that entering this code would unlock some secret ending or reveal new information about the bite. Instead, it's a meta joke, Scott's way of acknowledging the theory while firmly shutting it down. In Five Nights at Freddy's 2, Golden Freddy returns with modified mechanics. The entity no longer crashes the game when it appears. Instead, if you see Golden Freddy sitting in your office, you have approximately 7/10 of a second to put on the Freddy mask before it kills you. The entity can also appear as just its head in the hallway. If you shine your flashlight on this disembodied head, you need to stop immediately and avoid putting the mask on until the light is off, or Golden Freddy will kill you anyway. These specific timing requirements make dealing with Golden Freddy in the second game particularly stressful. The lore implications of Golden Freddy have spawned endless theories. The entity appears connected to the crying child from Five Nights at Freddy's 4, the boy who suffered the bite of 83 when his head was crushed in Fredbear's jaw. Based on behavioral patterns and thematic connections, some fans interpret the crying child's spirit as possessing Golden Freddy, which could explain why it behaves so differently from the other animatronics. Others argue that Golden Freddy is possessed by a different victim, potentially one named Cassidy, creating ongoing debates about whether one spirit or two inhabit this form. The evidence supports multiple interpretations, and the community has yet to reach consensus. The connection between Golden Freddy and Fredbear, the original Springlock suit that predates Freddy Fazbear, adds another layer of complexity. The relationship between these two entities remains ambiguous. They could be the same character at different points in time, or Golden Freddy might be a deteriorated version of Fredbear, or they could be separate suits inspired by similar designs. The games never clarify this relationship definitively, leaving it open to interpretation. In minigames, we see Fredbear as a yellow animatronic at the original diner. We see Golden Freddy as a slumped, apparently non-functional suit in later games. The visual similarity suggests continuity, but the details remain frustratingly vague. Ultimate Custom Night elevated Golden Freddy to a central position in the lore. Throughout the game, as William Afton experiences what many interpret as his personal hell, Golden Freddy's face periodically flashes on screen, specifically showing one eye. The implication is that this spirit, or these spirits, are orchestrating Afton's punishment. They're the ones keeping him trapped in this nightmare, forcing him to relive his crimes through endless variations of his own mechanisms turned against him. The connection between Golden Freddy and the vengeful spirit referred to in the game files as the one you should not have killed, suggests this entity has particular significance to Afton's downfall. One of Ultimate Custom Night's most elaborate secrets involves Golden Freddy directly. If you set only Golden Freddy to difficulty level 1, ensuring no other animatronics are active, and collect 10 Faz coins to purchase the Death Coin, you can use this special item on Golden Freddy when it appears. Doing so triggers a completely different jump scare, showing Fredbear instead of Golden Freddy. The imagery is disturbing, with Fredbear's mouth opening impossibly wide as the screen distorts. This secret confirms the connection between these two entities while maintaining the ambiguity about their exact relationship. The Death Coin mechanic itself is interesting. In normal gameplay, using it on certain animatronics makes them permanently inactive for the night. Using it on Golden Freddy should theoretically remove the threat entirely. Instead, it triggers this hidden Fredbear encounter, suggesting that this entity cannot be so easily dismissed. Even in death, even when targeted by a mechanism specifically designed to eliminate threats, Golden Freddy or Fredbear, or whatever this spirit truly is, persists, transforming into something even more aggressive. What makes Golden Freddy such an enduring mystery is the accumulation of small details across the franchise. In the save files, Golden Freddy has the internal name Yellow Bear. In minigames, we see a golden suit that may or may not be the same character. The 5th anniversary image shows Golden Freddy sitting prominently in the center. Voice lines in Ultimate Custom Night reference this character specifically. Every new game adds something to Golden Freddy's story while refusing to complete the picture. It's intentional ambiguity, designed to keep players theorizing. The way Golden Freddy breaks gameplay conventions also serves thematic purposes. This isn't an animatronic following programming, or even a spirit following the pattern of possession established by other characters. Golden Freddy represents something more fundamental to the franchise's horror. The idea that some victims are so thoroughly wrong that they cannot be contained by normal rules. The entity appears where it shouldn't, acts in ways that defy mechanics other characters follow, and persists across games when logic suggests it should be resolved. Players discovering Golden Freddy for the first time often experience genuine shock. The poster change is subtle enough that it can be missed entirely, making the sudden appearance in the office completely unexpected. The crash that follows adds to the impact, creating a moment where the game itself seems to glitch out under the weight of this encounter. It's brilliant design that transforms a technical effect into narrative moment, making Golden Freddy feel genuinely otherworldly. The relationship between Golden Freddy and the crying child, if such a connection exists, adds tragic depth to the encounters. From this perspective, the entity isn't just a hostile spirit attacking anyone who comes near. It could represent a child who died horribly, whose consciousness became trapped in the machine that killed them, who has been waiting decades for resolution. The aggression would make sense as desperation rather than pure malice. Every night guard who survives represents another person leaving the pizzeria, another chance for justice or peace slipping away. This interpretation, while not definitively confirmed, offers one possible explanation for Golden Freddy's persistent and unique behavior across the franchise. Scott's decision to keep Golden Freddy mechanically distinct across every appearance reinforces its unique status. Where other animatronics follow predictable patterns once you understand their rules, Golden Freddy always has some special condition, some trick that separates it from the crowd. In the first game, it crashes your game. In the second, it has different rules for the head and body appearances. In later games, It's tied to the deepest lore revelations. This consistency of inconsistency defines the character. The community's relationship with Golden Freddy has evolved from mystery to myth. Early players shared stories of encountering it, often unsure if what they'd seen was real or imagined. Over time, as the mechanics became understood and documented, the mystery shifted from what is this to what does it mean? Theories proliferated, some supported by evidence, others pure speculation. But the core appeal remained: Golden Freddy as the franchise's ultimate enigma. A character who appears in nearly every game, yet whose full story remains tantalizingly out of reach. Even the phone number Easter egg in Into the Pit connects to these mysteries. Dialing 7774648 plays the sound of spring locks failing, the mechanical snap that would have ended lives in these suits. It's a reminder that Golden Freddy or Fredbear isn't just a supernatural threat. It's a real machine that killed real people in the fiction. And the horror comes from that intersection of the mechanical and the spiritual, steel crushing bone, and the consciousness that lingers afterward. Secret minigames and hidden messages. The minigames in Five Nights at Freddy's aren't just gameplay diversions or simple cutscenes. They're fragments of memories, distorted recollections of tragedies, presented in a visual style that evokes early Atari games, while conveying some of the franchise's darkest moments. Many of these minigames are hidden behind specific conditions or rare triggers, making them secrets within themselves, and the messages they contain have driven countless hours of lore analysis and debate. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 introduced the death minigame system, where dying to certain animatronics could trigger these Atari-style sequences, instead of immediately returning you to the menu. The chance wasn't guaranteed, creating a situation where death became simultaneously frustrating and potentially rewarding. These minigames revealed critical information about the missing children incident, about the location's history, and about William Afton's crimes, all presented through simple pixelated graphics that somehow made the horrors more disturbing rather than less. Save Them is perhaps the most narratively significant minigame in the second game. You control Withered Freddy, navigating through the pizzeria while following the puppet. As Freddy moves through rooms, the letters SAVETHEM appear sequentially, forming the phrase that gives the minigame its name. Throughout the pizzeria, you encounter children's corpses in secluded corners, presumably murdered recently. The old animatronics appear in various rooms, and Mangle is visible in Kids Cove. The minigame has no traditional win condition. It simply ends when Freddy touches one of the corpses or reaches certain rooms. The rarest element of Save Them makes it truly special. William Afton, represented as a purple pixelated figure, can appear in any room with approximately a 0.01% chance after Freddy enters, making this an extraordinarily rare encounter. When the purple figure appears, it moves directly toward Freddy. If it makes contact, blue scan lines appear on screen, along with the message "You can't" in the bottom left corner, and the minigame ends abruptly. Most players never witness this firsthand, making it a genuine secret that primarily exists through community documentation and shared videos. Take Cake to the Children provides critical backstory for the puppet's possession. Playing as Freddy Fazbear, you must give cakes to children to keep them happy. As the minigame progresses, letters spelling SAVEHIM appear one at a time. Outside the pizzeria, a child waits alone. A purple car pulls up, William Afton emerges, and the child begins crying intensely before turning grey, representing death. William returns to his car and drives away. The minigame ends with the puppet jump scare. This sequence reveals the first murder, Charlotte Emily's death, that would give the puppet its supernatural properties and set the entire tragedy in motion. What makes this minigame particularly disturbing is the helplessness. As Freddy, you can see the murder happening through the window, but you can't intervene. You continue distributing cakes while a child dies outside. Freddy even slows down during this sequence. Touch is no longer calming children as quickly, representing the character's growing distress, or perhaps the puppet beginning to awaken inside its box. It's environmental storytelling at its finest, using game mechanics to convey emotional truth. Give Gifts, Give Life shows the puppet's role in the possessions more directly. You control the puppet, giving gifts represented by present boxes to 4 dead children in an empty room. Once all 4 have gifts, the presents disappear, and you must place animatronic masks on the children, one for Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. The sequence strongly suggests the puppet played a direct role in the spirits inhabiting the animatronics, granting them this form to prevent their deaths from being forgotten. Based on this and other evidence throughout the series, many interpret this as an act of preservation, albeit one that traps these children in metal prisons. Foxy Go 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 depicts the missing children incident from Foxy's perspective. You control Foxy, running through a repeating section of pizzeria, where children are initially present and cheering. With each repetition, children disappear, replaced by Go 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 text. Eventually, all children are gone, and William Afton appears as the purple figure, implied to have murdered them. Foxy slumps over, deactivated, and the minigame ends with Foxy's jump scare. This sequence confirms Foxy was present for or aware of the murders, explaining his aggressive behavior and possible guilt over being unable to prevent the tragedy. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 introduced even more complex minigames, often hidden behind specific actions rather than just playing randomly after death. Clicking nearly invisible objects in the office could trigger certain sequences. Following specific paths in the minigames themselves could reveal alternate versions or additional scenes. The games within games became a rabbit hole of discovery, with players sharing techniques for accessing different variations and endings. The Stage 01 minigame required interacting with wall tiles in the office on night 4 as if they were a keypad. Entering the code 395248 triggers this sequence. Interestingly, this number also functions as a hexadecimal color code that closely resembles Springtrap's color palette, suggesting the connection between code and character may be intentional rather than coincidental. You play as Shadow Freddy, following a specific path that appears to guide animatronics toward the safe room where they'll be dismantled. This minigame is crucial for understanding how the animatronics were lured to their temporary ends, setting up Afton's confrontation with the spirits. The role Shadow Freddy plays in this sequence has generated extensive debate about its true nature and allegiances. The phone that appears in some minigames can be called, with different numbers producing different results. Most trigger story beats or minigame progressions, but at least one number plays sound effects that enhance the lore without providing explicit narrative. These hidden phone numbers were discovered through data mining and community collaboration, with players sharing findings until the full sequence was understood. Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator took minigames to new levels of complexity. The 3 main minigames, Fruity Maze, Midnight Motorist, and Security Puppet, all have secret variations that reveal crucial lore. In Fruity Maze, playing through completely 3 times triggers a special ending where William Afton appears in the Spring Bonnie suit, revealing his method for luring Susie, the girl who would possess Chica. The messages "he is not dead" and "follow me" appear in different colors, suggesting someone, possibly another victim spirit, is trying to communicate the truth. Midnight Motorist is perhaps the most analyzed and debated minigame in the franchise. It appears after specific conditions and shows what many interpret as William Afton represented as a purple pixelated driver, racing down a road while labeled "later that night," presumably after the Charlotte murder. The car cannot visit a place marked Juniors, with text indicating the driver has been kicked out previously. The sequence travels to a house where a person in grey won't leave the couch in front of the television. Heading outside reveals a broken window and a path leading to what appears to be an animatronic footprint near Freddy's location. The community continues debating which son this might represent, what the footprints could mean, and what these events reveal about Afton's family dynamics during this period. The ambiguity has made it one of the most discussion-generating secrets in the series. Security Puppet's minigame expands on Charlotte's death from the puppet's perspective. On the 3rd playthrough, the box gets blocked by another gift, preventing the puppet from activating immediately. Outside, the child with the green security bracelet, Charlotte, jumps up and down waiting for help while a car pulls up. The child fades away, murdered, and when the security puppet finally escapes its box and reaches her body in the rain, the mechanism breaks down, collapsing beside her. The rain causes the malfunction that traps Charlotte's spirit in the puppet, a detail that explains why this possession happened first and remained so powerful. The minigames also hide messages in their structure. Certain phrases appear letter by letter across multiple screens. Colors carry meaning, with different text colors suggesting different speakers or perspectives. The pixelated art style allows Scott to depict violence without being graphic, letting players' imaginations fill in the horrifying details while maintaining the rating necessary for wide distribution. It's clever design that turns limitation into strength. Hidden in some minigame code are unused sprites, alternate versions of scenes, variations that suggest Scott experimented with different ways of revealing information. These unused elements, discoverable through data mining, provide additional context, or sometimes just deepen mysteries. They're secrets within secrets, fragments Scott decided not to include, but that remain in the files for dedicated investigators to find. The community's approach to minigame secrets demonstrates the franchise's unique relationship with its players. People don't just play through the minigames once. They experiment, try different paths, input different codes, replay sections looking for variations. The minigames become puzzles to solve rather than cutscenes to watch, active participation in uncovering truth rather than passive consumption of narrative. This design philosophy respects players' intelligence and rewards their investment. The way minigames present information also matters. By using the retro aesthetic and brief, disconnected vignettes, Scott can show moments from the timeline without committing to a specific linear narrative. Players must assemble these pieces themselves, deciding which events connect to which, determining chronological order based on clues rather than explicit dates. This approach has led to disagreements and alternative interpretations, but it's also kept the community engaged for years, always discovering new details on repeated viewing. the audio in minigames deserves attention as well. Simple beeps and bloops can be slowed down or sped up to reveal hidden messages. Ambience that seems like background noise sometimes contains voices or meaningful patterns. The crying sounds in Take Cake, the music box tune in Give Gifts, the ambient noise in Midnight Motorist. Each element contributes to atmosphere while potentially hiding secrets in its structure. Some minigames only appear under specific difficulty settings or after achieving certain endings. Others require finding hidden objects in the main game that unlock extra scenes. The layers of condition-based access create a situation where experiencing all the content demands both skill and knowledge, rewarding players who master the games and engage with the community to learn what triggers exist. The relationship between minigames and main gameplay creates interesting friction. You're trying to survive night shifts while knowing that dying might reveal important lore. Do you play it safe and miss potential discoveries? Or do you take risks, hoping to trigger rare sequences? This tension adds dimension to the experience, making even death potentially valuable in its own way, though still frustrating when it happens during a promising survival run. As the franchise evolved, minigames became more elaborate, transitioning from pure Atari aesthetic to more detailed pixel art, incorporating full RPG elements in Princess Quest, becoming actual minigames rather than just narrative vehicles. But the core principle remained: hide crucial information inside content that requires effort to access, making discoveries feel earned and significant. Source code secrets and developer messages. Beyond what appears on screen during normal gameplay, Scott Cawthon embedded secrets directly into the code and website elements of Five Nights at Freddy's, creating a layer of mystery that required players to look past the games themselves to the digital infrastructure surrounding them. These hidden messages, revealed through examining page source code, decompiling game files, and analyzing Scott's official websites, added metatextual dimensions to the already complex lore. The scottgames.com website became legendary for its teasers and hidden elements. Before each game's release, Scott would update the site with cryptic images that hinted at upcoming content. But the images themselves were only part of the story. Hovering over images sometimes revealed alt text with additional messages. Right-clicking to view page source exposed comment text hidden in the HTML, intended only for those willing to dig deeper. Scott was essentially rewarding players who approached his content like investigators rather than passive consumers. During the lead-up to Sister Location, the Scott Games and FNAF World websites appeared to have a conversation in their source code. The Scott Games source contained messages like, "You are crowding us," and "We outnumber you." While the FNAF World source responded with phrases like, "Be quiet," and "Yes, I can." "You will do everything I tell you to do." This cryptic dialogue, pieced together by players examining both sides simultaneously, suggested conflict between different entities, possibly foreshadowing Ennard's nature as a combination of animatronics or hinting at the relationship between Baby and the other fun times. What made this conversation particularly interesting was how it required community collaboration to fully understand. Individual players might check one site's source code and find fragments, but only by comparing findings across the community could the full exchange emerge. Scott designed secrets that couldn't be completely solved alone, fostering the collaborative investigation that became central to FNAF's community culture. Teaser images often contained more than first appeared. The brightening and contrast adjustment of images revealed hidden figures in shadows, text at the edges of frames, details invisible at normal viewing settings. When Scott released the Funtime Foxy teaser for Sister Location, careful examination revealed additional text barely visible against the background. The Spring Bonnie teaser included, "There was never just one," a message that supported theories about multiple spring lock suits existing simultaneously. Some teasers changed based on when you viewed them. Scott would update images on his site, with early visitors seeing one version and later visitors seeing modified versions with additional elements or changed details. This temporal dimension to the secrets meant that being active in the community and checking regularly was rewarded, while also creating situations where players debated whether certain elements existed or were imagined, since not everyone saw the same iterations. The source code of the teaser pages sometimes included abbreviated company names and location references that expanded the universe. Aften BTCS for Aften Robotics LLC, Chakas Partiworld for Chica's Party World, CRMN Inst, suggesting criminal institution. These fragments, intended to be decoded, provided canonical company names and location details that helped flesh out the business structure underlying the horror. They were breadcrumbs leading to a fuller understanding of how Fazbear Entertainment operated as a corporate entity. Game files themselves contain secrets for those willing to data mine. Unused character models, alternate voice lines, scrapped mechanics, all discoverable for players with technical expertise. While Scott likely knew data miners would find these elements, he never explicitly acknowledged it, maintaining the mystery even as details leaked. Some unused content clearly represented ideas Scott abandoned. Other unused elements seemed deliberately left in files as additional lore, obscure hints for the most dedicated investigators. The animatronic blueprints that appear in Sister Location's private room contain technical details that reward close examination. The schematics show internal mechanisms, specify functions for various components, and use terminology that suggests real engineering thought went into their design, at least fictionally. These blueprints can be triggered by entering 1983 on the keypad, connecting them to the Byte of 83 and the FNAF 4 house, whose rooms appear on monitors when the code is entered. It's a multi-layered secret requiring players to discover the code, appreciate the visual reward, and then analyze the technical information presented. Some images Scott posted contained hidden messages visible only in specific contexts. Brightening an image might reveal text. Converting an image to different color modes exposed hidden layers. Analyzing the hex code of specific pixels provided coordinates or codes. Scott experimented with various steganographic techniques, ensuring that secrets required multiple approaches to fully excavate. The newspaper clippings in the first game rewarded close reading. Surrounding the main text were messages from Scott himself, meta-commentary that broke the fourth wall while providing gameplay advice disguised as mocking humor. Chances are you won't make it past night 3, and this probably isn't the best choice of a summer job, appeared in tiny text around the help wanted ad. Acknowledgements from the developer to players undertaking this challenge. File names with in-game directories sometimes provided context for understanding characters or events. Internal labels for characters that differed from their public names suggested backstory or alternate identities. Seeing how Scott organized and named assets revealed his development process and occasionally exposed connections between elements that seemed separate in gameplay. the source code conversations weren't always clear or complete. Fragments appeared across multiple updates, requiring players to track changes over time. Some messages seemed to have letters missing deliberately, creating rudimentary ciphers that needed solving before the text made sense. These puzzles within puzzles demonstrated Scott's commitment to making discovery an active process rather than passive reception. Updates to games sometimes included new hidden elements in the code. Patches that were ostensibly just bug fixes would include new secret images in the files or altered text in unusual places. Players learned to treat every update as potentially significant, data mining each new version to identify changes beyond the patch notes. Scott rewarded this vigilance with occasional new discoveries. The way these source code secrets function differs from in-game Easter eggs. They're harder to access, requiring technical knowledge or at minimum awareness that source code exists and can be viewed. This creates a hierarchy of secrets, where casual players might see the games as surface mysteries. Dedicated players might find all the rare in-game events, and only the most technically engaged community members would discover the source code layers. Each level rewarded different types of engagement. The Steam Store pages for the games included hidden details in their descriptions and tags. Scott would occasionally adjust these with subtle changes that hinted at upcoming developments or clarified existing ambiguities. These weren't always dramatic reveals, but consistent application of details that help construct the broader picture. What Scott achieved through these source code secrets was making the game's reality extend beyond the executable file. The websites, the images, the surrounding digital infrastructure all became part of the experience. FNAF wasn't just what happened in the game window. It was a broader, alternate reality game where every official element might contain clues. This approach made the franchise feel larger and more mysterious than its actual content, creating the sense that Scott had hidden layers everywhere. The community's response was to meet Scott's challenge. Players became adept at checking source code immediately when new content dropped. Tools were developed and shared for data mining game files. Discord servers coordinated examinations of new releases, dividing responsibility for checking different potential hiding places. The collaboration turned secret hunting into a social activity, strengthening community bonds through shared discovery. Not every source code element was immediately understood. Some remained mysteries for months or years until new game releases provided context. Scott planted seeds that wouldn't sprout until future installments, ensuring that even old content stayed relevant. This forward-thinking design meant players had reason to revisit previous discoveries when new information emerged, constantly recontextualizing earlier findings. The meta-narrative these secrets created was fascinating. Scott wasn't just telling a story about haunted animatronics. He was creating a mythology about discovery itself, where the act of finding secrets became part of the narrative experience. Players weren't just learning about the FNAF universe. They were participating in its continued construction, their discoveries legitimizing theories and driving forward understanding. Rare screens and visual hallucinations. Five Nights at Freddy's distinguished itself from other horror games partly through its use of rare visual phenomena that existed outside normal gameplay threats. These weren't consistent elements you learned to expect and counter. They were glitches in reality, momentary breaches of the game's established rules that appeared so infrequently that seeing them felt like witnessing something forbidden. The franchise's rare screens became legendary, with players sharing stories of encounters and debating probabilities. The hallucinations in the first game established the template. Throughout your shifts, there's a 1 in 1,000 chance every second that your vision will be overtaken by rapidly alternating images of black-eyed Bonnie and Freddy with human eyes. This strobe effect lasts only moments, but it's intensely disorienting, accompanied by the groaning sounds animatronics make when they're at the door. The text, "It's me," flashes intermittently during these hallucinations, a message whose meaning has been endlessly analyzed. Who is speaking? Which victim is trying to communicate? The ambiguity makes it more unsettling. These visual hallucinations could trigger at any time, even while you're viewing cameras or after power runs out. They're not tied to any specific gameplay threat. You're not being attacked when they occur. They're purely atmospheric, reminders that the pizzeria's supernatural corruption affects the very fabric of reality. The randomness means you can never fully prepare for them. They just happen, breaking your concentration and reinforcing that you're not in control of this environment. The eyeless Bonnie screen was another infamous rarity from the first game. When returning to the title screen, there's a 1 in 1,000 chance that instead of the normal menu, you see a still image of Bonnie with empty eye sockets. For 9.5 seconds, this image stares at you, void-eyed and motionless. Then, for half a second, small white pupils appear in the darkness before the screen transitions to the proper menu. Players who encountered this during the game's early days often questioned whether they'd actually seen it, the brief duration and unexpected timing creating doubt. The second game expanded the rare screen concept significantly. JJ, a recolored version of Balloon Boy, appears under your desk with extremely low probability at the start of nights. If you pull up the camera immediately, you'll miss her entirely. The character has no impact on gameplay, no aggressive function, no clear purpose beyond existing as a rare sight that rewards players who take a moment before beginning their defensive routines. The name JJ came from the community rather than official sources, but it stuck, demonstrating how fan terminology can become semi-canonical through persistence. The endoskeleton appearances in the second game had specific triggers, but still felt random. Endo02 could appear in the prize corner after the puppet left its box, or in the left air vent under certain conditions. The odds were 1 in 10 for the prize corner appearance, high enough to be somewhat common, but the vent appearance was much rarer. The bare endoskeleton, stripped of any character identity, represented the pure mechanical threat underlying the possessed animatronics, horror of form divorced from personality. Paperplate Buddy, a character consisting literally of a paper plate with a face drawn on it, could activate only on night 7 under specific conditions, with a 1 in 100 chance if triggered. This absurd character would leave Party Room 4 and reappear on the far right wall when you raise the monitor. It had no gameplay effect, existing purely as an Easter egg. The contrast between the elaborate animatronics and this crude paper plate made Paperplate Buddy weirdly unsettling, an intrusion of childish arts and crafts into the horror. The eyeless variants of multiple animatronics appeared with 1 in 1,000 probability after various screens in the second game. Eyeless Withered Freddy could appear after the warning screen. Eyeless Toy Bonnie showed up after game over. Eyeless Withered Foxy appeared when starting nights. Each lasted about 10 seconds while a repeating sound effect played, the flashlight disable sound looping continuously. These images were disturbing in their simplicity, taking familiar characters and removing the component that made them seem alive. In the third game, rare screens often appeared on cameras rather than as full-screen events. The posters in various rooms could change to alternate images with low probability. Camera 10 might show crudely drawn Springtrap instead of the normal posters. Camera 4's toy Bonnie poster could transform into either a pink cupcake or golden cupcake version. Camera 2 occasionally displayed Springtrap fan art-style drawings where other posters should be. These changes were subtle, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention to background details, rewarding observant players. Shadow Freddy's rare office appearance in the third game had no obvious trigger. Occasionally, when not viewing cameras, this purple-tinged entity would simply be standing in the office with you. It had no effect on gameplay, didn't attack, didn't interfere with your actions. It just stood there, watching, existing as ambient horror. The lack of associated mechanics made Shadow Freddy feel genuinely wrong, something that shouldn't be possible within the game's systems. The fourth game featured rare screens tied to its nightmarish aesthetic. The Fredbear plushie sitting on the bed occasionally transformed into different variations, subtle changes in expression or positioning. The closet door might show different versions of Nightmare Bonnie peeking through, frames that appeared too briefly to consciously register, but long enough to create subliminal unease. These barely there variants played with the boundary between what was actually on screen and what players imagined they saw. Sister Location introduced a different approach to rare content. Blueprints that appeared upon death showed technical details with such density that players could zoom in during video playback to read specific notes. The TV cutscenes between nights occasionally featured a mini Rena in the popcorn tub, barely visible unless you looked carefully. These were secrets in plain sight rather than low probability events, rewarding attention to detail rather than grinding for rare triggers. The lolbit appearances in various games demonstrated how rare screens evolved into semi-gameplay elements. In Sister Location's custom night, lolbit could randomly cause the please stand by screen to appear, disabling your vision entirely. The solution was typing LOL on the keyboard, a response that felt more like hacker culture than horror game mechanics. This Easter egg that required out-of-fiction knowledge to solve, breaking the fourth wall by expecting players to have information their character wouldn't possess. Help Wanted's VR environment added spatial dimension to rare screens. Characters could appear in your peripheral vision, rather than directly in front of you. The psychological impact of seeing something out of the corner of your VR perspective, knowing you could turn your head but uncertain if you want to look directly, created unique tension. The rare screens weren't just images anymore. They were presences in space. The glitch trap encounters in Help Wanted served as rare screens with narrative significance. While collectible tapes made glitch trap appearances more common, the entity could also manifest randomly during certain activities, watching from unexpected angles. These sightings built dread gradually rather than providing immediate scares, making players question whether they'd actually seen movement in the virtual environment. Security Breach implemented rare screens through the sprawling environment rather than probability triggers. Certain areas contained references to previous games that only appeared if you explored thoroughly. The poster of the old locations, the arcade cabinets with familiar titles. These weren't random spawns but permanent elements that rewarded exploration, shifting the rare screen concept from luck fact-based to discovery-based. What united all these rare screens across games was their fundamental purpose, reminding players that the game world was bigger and stranger than the main mechanics suggested. The animatronics on set patrol patterns were scary because they were predictable threats. The rare screens were scary because they represented unpredictability, chaos lurking beneath apparent order. They suggested that the supernatural corruption affecting these locations wasn't just about possessed animatronics following grudges. It was about reality itself becoming unstable. The community's fascination with rare screens drove extensive testing. Players would run the games idle for hours trying to trigger specific events. Some created programs to automate the process, generating thousands of attempts to encounter rare screens for documentation purposes. This dedication produced comprehensive catalogues of every known rare appearance, with probability calculations and trigger condition documentation. But even with extensive testing, debates persisted about whether certain screens were real or creepypasta. The FNAF community produced fan-made horror content alongside genuine discoveries, making it difficult sometimes to separate authentic rare screens from elaborate hoaxes. This uncertainty became part of the experience, the franchise inspiring enough creative response that the boundaries between official and fan-created content blurred. The rare screens also functioned as Scott's signature across the games. Other developers might hide messages in credits or include debug modes. Scott created an entire language of visual secrets, a consistent approach to rewarding players who looked beyond surface mechanics. This consistency helped define FNAF's identity, making the franchise recognizable not just through its characters, but through its design philosophy. Hidden codes and cheat secrets. While most players experience Five Nights at Freddy's as pure survival horror, Scott Cawthon included alternative ways to interact with the games through hidden codes and cheat commands. These weren't published in manuals or obvious in the interface. They were discovered through experimentation, community sharing, and sometimes accident, providing shortcuts, unlocks, and access to content that would otherwise require completing difficult challenges. The CD Plus code became legendary among early players. During gameplay in the first two games, if you held down the C and D keys on your keyboard simultaneously while pressing the plus symbol on the numpad, you would skip instantly to 6 a.m., ending the night successfully. This cheat made impossible nights suddenly achievable for players who struggled with the standard mechanics. The catch was that in the first game, you could use it anywhere. But in the second game, you had to be clicking on Toy Freddy's nose in the Celebrate poster while entering the code, adding an extra layer of knowledge required. The unlock codes for Night 6 and 7 worked similarly. On the title screen, holding CD and 1 together would unlock Night 6 and add 1 star to your completion record. Using C, D, and 2 unlocked custom Night and added 2 stars. These codes let players access endgame content without completing the earlier nights, useful for content creators who wanted to showcase everything or players who wanted to jump straight to the most challenging scenarios. These keyboard shortcuts revealed Scott's awareness that his games appealed to different types of players. Some wanted the pure challenge of surviving legitimately. Others wanted to experience the content, see all the animatronics, and engage with the lore without necessarily mastering the gameplay. The codes accommodated both approaches without compromising the integrity of either experience. The private room in Sister Location featured multiple keypad codes that unlocked different content. Entering 1983 changed the monitor displays to show rooms from the FNAF 4 house, confirming the connection between sister locations' underground facility and the layout of the fourth game. This wasn't just an Easter egg, it was explicit lore confirmation delivered through player action, rewarding those who experimented with the available keypad. Other codes in sister locations' private room affected animatronic behavior or triggered specific events. The keypads throughout the facility weren't just decorative. They were interactive elements that responded to specific inputs, though most codes weren't obvious. Players discovered them through trial and error, data mining, or finding hints in surrounding context. The code system made the facility feel more real, like a functional space with access points, rather than just a game level. Into the Pit included a phone that could be interacted with on certain nights. Most numbers progressed the story or triggered mini-games, but dialing 7774648 played the springlock failure sound, William Afton's death compressed into audio. This wasn't labeled or explained. Players had to discover the number, try calling it, and recognize what they were hearing. It rewarded lore knowledge while providing no immediate gameplay benefit. Some games let you modify files directly to access developer features. In Pizzeria Simulator, navigating to the save file location and editing specific values in Notepad could change your money to any amount or skip you forward to any night. This required understanding where save files lived on your system and being comfortable editing text files, technical knowledge not all players possessed. But for those who did, it provided granular control over the experience. The Survival Kit DLC available on mobile versions of several games essentially commercialized these cheats, offering unlimited power or radar maps for players willing to pay. This made the assistance official and supported, rather than requiring code discovery. It also revealed Scott's pragmatic approach to difficulty, recognizing that some players would rather pay to bypass challenges than abandon the games entirely. The Halloween edition updates to several games activated based on your system date. Setting your computer to October 31st unlocked special decorations, altered character appearances, and sometimes modified mechanics. This time-based unlock required players to either wait for the actual date or learn that manually adjusting system time could trigger the content. It was a gentle form of code, manipulating the computer's understanding of when it was to access content designed for specific periods. The exotic Butters basket in Sister Location's custom night could be clicked to show Lolbit's Please Stand By screen in a later update. This wasn't immediately obvious functionality. The basket appeared in several contexts, and only specific versions of it were interactive. Players had to click around the environment looking for responsive elements, turning the whole facility into a point-and-click adventure hidden within the survival horror framework. Some games featured debug modes accessible through specific launch parameters or file modifications. These modes would display additional information, let you freely navigate areas, or show hitboxes and collision geometry. They were intended for development and testing, but Scott left them accessible rather than removing them for release, allowing curious players to see under the hood. The custom night settings in various games became codes themselves. Setting animatronic AI values to specific combinations could trigger hidden events. The 1987 Golden Freddy crash in the first game is the most famous example, but other combinations produced different results. Players experimented with various configurations looking for special responses, treating the AI-level sliders as a 10-digit combination lock. The FNAF 4 night skip required pressing S, C, and 6 simultaneously, after enabling developer cheats by pressing C on the warning screen. This was more elaborate than earlier skip codes, requiring 2 separate actions, with the second only possible after the first unlocked it. The additional complexity reflected Scott's developing approach to secrets, making them harder to stumble upon accidentally, while still rewarding intentional experimentation. Secret of the Mimic, the most recent major release as of 2025, features keypads throughout the facility that require codes discovered by examining the environment. Monitors display sequences. Posters include number patterns. Objects in rooms correspond to digits. Each locked door requires players to look at their surroundings carefully, rather than guessing or brute forcing. It's environmental puzzle design disguised as security systems, making code entry feel diegetic. The codes and cheats served multiple purposes beyond simple convenience. They were Scott's acknowledgement that players would data mine and reverse engineer his games anyway, so including official shortcuts made that process more player-friendly. They also extended the game's value by letting players experience content in different orders or under different conditions. Someone who beat all nights legitimately might use codes to experiment with custom night configurations they wouldn't otherwise reach. The community's relationship with these secrets demonstrated different playstyles. Some players considered using codes illegitimate, diminishing the accomplishment of completion. Others viewed them as tools for creating custom experiences, ways to interact with the games beyond their intended structure. Neither approach was wrong. Scott's inclusion of codes validated both philosophies, respecting that players would engage on their own terms. The codes also created a culture of sharing. Players who discovered secrets would post them online for others to find. Wikis compiled comprehensive lists of every known code across all games. YouTube videos demonstrated how to input them. This collaborative documentation ensured that even obscure secrets eventually became common knowledge, though the discovery process still held value for those who wanted to find things independently. What's interesting is how codes evolved from simple bypasses to lore delivery mechanisms. Early codes just let you skip nights or unlock content. Later codes revealed story information, confirmed theories, or provided context for events. The Private Rooms 1983 code didn't just unlock an Easter egg. It established canonical connections between games, using player interaction to deliver narrative revelation rather than just showing it in a cutscene. This transformation of codes from convenience features to story elements reflects FNAF's broader design philosophy. Everything could serve multiple purposes. A rare screen was both atmospheric and potentially lore relevant. A code might bypass challenge while also teaching something about the world. The games resisted single-function design, layering meaning and purpose into each element. Ultimate Custom Night Deep Secrets. Ultimate Custom Night represented Scott Cawthon's most comprehensive engagement with the franchise's secret hiding traditions. Released as a free standalone title, it compiled 50 animatronics from across the series into a single customizable nightmare where players could adjust difficulty for each character independently. But beyond this surface premise lay some of the franchise's most elaborate hidden content, secrets that required specific knowledge and precise execution to discover. The Old Man Consequence's secret stands among the most elaborate in the entire franchise. This character, originating from FNAF World, appears as a simple fishing minigame accessible in Ultimate Custom Night under highly specific conditions. You must set only Old Man Consequences to difficulty level 1, with all other animatronics at 0. When he appears, you receive a fishing minigame. Catching a fish triggers the real secret. You're transported to the 4th layer deep from FNAF World, an area depicted as a dark lake where Old Man Consequences sits fishing. Approaching him reveals his dialogue, delivered in text boxes. "Come and sit with me a while," followed by, "Leave the demon to his demons. Rest your own soul. There is nothing else." The message is profound, suggesting that some souls, specifically Cassidy's vengeful spirit tormenting William Afton, need to let go of their pursuit of revenge and find peace. The way you exit this secret is equally meaningful. You walk into the lake and drown yourself, the screen fading as your character sinks before the game crashes. This crash isn't a bug, it's the ending, symbolizing release from the cycle. The audio in this sequence deserves attention. A droning ambience plays throughout, and when sped up significantly, it becomes a distorted sound of a man screaming. Many in the community interpret this as William Afton's suffering, fitting with the theory that Ultimate Custom Night represents either a literal afterlife or Cassidy's constructed prison for her murderer, though the game itself leaves this interpretation open-ended. The fact that this revelation comes through manipulating audio files rather than obvious gameplay demonstrates the layered nature of FNAF Secrets. The Fredbear Easter egg requires similar precision, but different execution. Set only Withered Golden Freddy to difficulty 1 with all others at 0. Collect 10 Faz coins during gameplay. Purchase the death coin from the prize counter. When Golden Freddy appears in your office, use the death coin on him. Instead of being eliminated like other characters would be, Golden Freddy transforms into Fredbear, triggering a jump scare with distorted imagery and sounds. The Fredbear form has dialogue as well, though it's heavily garbled and subject to interpretation. These two secrets function as Ultimate Custom Night's commentary on the franchise's central tragedy. Old Man Consequences represents a philosophy of acceptance and peace, encouraging victims to move beyond their trauma. Fredbear's appearance, when you try to eliminate Golden Freddy with the death coin, suggests certain spirits may not be easily dismissed, that some wounds could run too deep for simple resolution. Together, they present competing perspectives on how the possessed animatronics might approach their situation, though the game leaves the ultimate interpretation to players. The catch with both secrets involves DD, a character who randomly appears with a chance to add additional animatronics to your night. For the Old Man Consequences sequence, if DD appears before you complete the fishing trigger, the secret becomes impossible that attempt. The Fredbear secret is slightly more forgiving. As long as you purchase the death coin before DD appears, you can still trigger the Easter egg, though if she shows up before you collect enough coins, you'll miss your opportunity. This creates time pressure, pushing you to execute these elaborate setups quickly, despite running nights with minimal threat. Shadow DD, or XOR, represents another layer of rarity. This glitched black and white version of the character appears randomly, unlike regular DD, who has more predictable patterns. Shadow DD can summon secret animatronics that aren't selectable in the custom night menu: Nightmare Chica, Plush Trap, Nightmare Mangle, Nightmare Balloon Boy, and the shadowy entities. These characters, when added, have AI levels between 5 and 10, creating sudden difficulty spikes in runs that were otherwise controlled. The secret animatronics summoned this way each have unique mechanics that differ from their main game appearances. Bonnet, for instance, appears on screen and slides from right to left. You must click her nose, and if you do, she leaves harmlessly. fail to click in time, and she jump scares you. The mechanic is simple, but requires fast reaction and precise clicking. Lorbit's interference involves typing LOL on your keyboard to dismiss the please stand by screen. Mini-arenas appear in groups blocking your vision, and can only be removed by waiting them out or using the AC carefully. The animatronics from a FNAF world that can appear on your desk, Tangle, White Rabbit, and Bounce Pot, serve no gameplay function. They're purely visual Easter eggs, appearing rarely when you lower your monitor. Their presence connects Ultimate Custom Night back to the RPG spin-off, acknowledging that game's place in the franchise even though it was retired from official canon. Scott's decision to include these references shows his appreciation for the entire breadth of his created world. Mr. Hippo's death stories represent a different kind of secret, one focused on writing and character rather than gameplay mechanics. When Mr. Hippo kills you, he launches into long, meandering stories about his friend Orville Elephant. These monologues are absurdly mundane, discussing topics like forgetting to buy a sprinkler or arguing about whether restaurants were open during their trip. They're funny precisely because they're so inappropriate to the horror context, giving Mr. Hippo distinct personality while breaking tension completely. The hidden value of Mr. Hippo's stories extends beyond their surface comedy. They're Scott's commentary on theorizing and meaning-seeking. In one story, Mr. Hippo explicitly states, "Not everything has a deeper meaning," acknowledging the community's tendency to find significance in every detail. It's a gentle ribbing of the player base from Scott himself, a reminder delivered through a chatty hippopotamus that sometimes a sprinkler is just a sprinkler. Yet the inclusion of this meta-commentary in a game full of intentional secrets creates its own irony. The Office variations unlockable by achieving certain score thresholds reward dedicated players with aesthetic changes. Reaching 2,000 points unlocks the classic FNAF 1 Office skin. 5,000 points provides the FNAF 3 Office. 8,000 points unlocks a final variant. These aren't just cosmetic, they're trophies, visible proof of skill for anyone watching your gameplay. The fact that the offices come from previous games creates nostalgia while serving functional purposes. The cutscenes that play after completing certain configurations or reaching score milestones provide additional character development through bizarre scenarios. Chica's high school years depicts the animatronic in various ridiculous situations, planning dates or schemes. The theatrical, over-the-top presentation of these animations contrasts sharply with the horror content elsewhere, showing Scott's range and willingness to embrace absurdity alongside scares. The vengeful spirit face that occasionally flashes on screen represents Ultimate Custom Night's most unsettling visual element. This child's face, widely theorized within the community to be either Cassidy or Andrew, depending on which interpretation of the lore one follows, appears with no warning during gameplay and on the death screen. The image is disturbing in its simplicity. A child's face, distorted and angry, staring directly at the player. Based on the game's context and the file references to the one you should not have killed, this appears to represent a murdered child seeking some form of resolution, though the specific identity remains debated. The way voice lines interconnect and reference each other rewards paying attention to what animatronics say when they kill you. Characters discuss their motivations, reference events from their games, acknowledge each other's presence, and sometimes break the fourth wall. Circus Baby might reference her father. Lefty speaks about being a vessel. Nightmare Fredbear's distorted philosophy about nightmares. Each death becomes an opportunity to learn more about characters through their own words, transforming failure into character study. Unused content in the game files suggested additional secrets Scott considered, but didn't implement. Alternate voice lines removed mechanics, characters that were planned but cut. These remnants, discoverable through data mining, show the development process and hint at what might have been. They're accidental secrets, unintended windows into Scott's creative process that exist because removing content from files entirely is less common than simply making it inaccessible through normal play. The specific combinations of animatronics that enable certain voice lines or interactions create almost infinite variability. Certain characters comment on others being active. Some mechanics work differently when particular animatronics are combined. The depth of these interactions means players are still discovering subtle variations years after release, finding new dialogue by testing combinations that hadn't been fully explored. Security breach and modern-era secrets. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach marked the franchise's first major entry into free roam gameplay, transforming the confined space survival horror into an exploration-focused experience within the massive Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex. This shift in game design brought corresponding changes to how secrets were implemented, moving from rare probability-based events to discovery-based hidden content scattered throughout the environment. The Pizzaplex became a puzzle box, where every corner might hide references, every terminal might contain lore, and multiple endings rewarded thorough investigation. The Princess Quest arcade games represent Security Breach's most significant secret sequence. These retro-styled games appear on arcade cabinets throughout the Pizzaplex, with Princess Quest 1 accessible early, Princess Quest 2 requiring more exploration to locate, and Princess Quest 3 hidden in Vanny's secret lair. The games themselves play as simple top-down adventures where you control a princess fighting through castles filled with enemies. But their true purpose is freeing Vanessa from Glitchtrap's control. Completing all three Princess Quest games unlocks what the community widely considers the canon ending, where Gregory, Vanessa, and Glamrock Freddy escape the Pizzaplex together as the sun rises. The arcade games function as more than minigame diversions. Based on their thematic connection to Help Wanted's VR origins and the resulting ending, they appear to serve as a mechanism for breaking the digital influence affecting Vanessa. The fact that gameplay itself, playing games within the game, provides the solution, demonstrates the franchise's self-awareness about its nature as interactive fiction. The collectible CDs scattered throughout the Pizzaplex reward thorough exploration with therapy session recordings that expose Vanessa's backstory. These audio logs reveal her troubled childhood, her father's manipulation, and how she became vulnerable to Glitchtrap's influence. The CDs aren't marked on your map or highlighted with special effects. You find them by paying attention to your environment, checking corners and alternative paths. Each one adds a piece to understanding Vanessa's psychology and why she became Vanny. The process of collecting these CDs mirrors the broader shift in Security Breach's secret philosophy. Rather than random probability triggering rare content, the game rewards systematic exploration. The secret isn't will you be lucky enough to see it. The secret is, did you look carefully enough to find it? This makes discovery feel more earned but potentially more frustrating for players who miss critical items despite thorough searching. Vanny's hideout in Phaser Blast contains some of the game's most disturbing environmental storytelling. Reaching this area requires specific actions and exploration, but the reward is a room covered in notes, plans, and references to William Afton. The mannequin with the security guard uniform suggests Vanny's previous actions. The conspiracy theory-style wall layout indicates her obsession and planning. Finding this location provides context for Vanny's actions throughout the game and establishes her connection to Afton's legacy. The messages section, accessible through terminals throughout the Pizzaplex, reveals employee complaints and observations that flesh out the location's day-to-day operations. These text logs aren't critical to completing the game, but add texture to the world. Staff members discuss broken systems, worry about animatronic malfunctions, and document strange occurrences. Reading these messages makes the Pizzaplex feel like a real place with real employees, rather than just a horror game level. The Afton family references hidden in the Pizzaplex reward lore-knowledgeable players. In the sewers beneath the facility, there's a room with a table surrounded by staff bots. Fans have interpreted the arrangement and positioning to potentially represent members of the Afton family, with the bot's placement suggesting William, his wife, Michael, Elizabeth, and the crying child. This interpretation requires significant lore knowledge and remains somewhat speculative, representing the kind of environmental storytelling that primarily rewards longtime fans rather than newcomers. The Glamrock animatronics rooms contain personal touches that develop their characters through environment. Glamrock Freddy's green room shows his close friendship with Bonnie through photos and belongings. Roxanne Wolf's room is covered in affirmations and self-help materials, revealing her insecurity despite her confident persona. Montgomery Gator's area contains evidence of his violent tendencies and possible involvement in Bonnie's disappearance. These environmental details turn the animatronics from simple enemies into characters with interiority. The newspaper clippings and posters throughout the Pizzaplex reference previous games and establish timeline connections. Seeing old Fazbear locations mentioned, reading about the franchise's troubled history, encountering merchandise from earlier eras, all this creates a sense of continuity. The Pizzaplex didn't spontaneously appear. It's built on decades of corporate history, and the environment reflects that accumulated past. The secret endings beyond Princess Quest each require specific actions to trigger. The Vanny ending, where Gregory gets captured, shows what happens if you fail to complete critical objectives. The Burn Trap ending, accessing the old pizzeria simulator location beneath the Pizzaplex and confronting what remains of William Afton, provides the darkest conclusion. The rooftop ending, where Gregory escapes alone, offers a bittersweet middle ground. The multiplicity of endings rewards replaying with different approaches. The connection between Security Breach and previous games goes deep underground, literally. The entire pizzeria simulator location exists beneath the Pizzaplex, accessible through hidden areas. Finding this requires significant exploration and puzzle solving, but reaching the old restaurant and encountering Burn Trap, the reanimated corpse of William Afton emerging from the rubble, provides direct continuity. The Pizzaplex was built atop tragedy, its foundations literally resting on burned remains of previous horrors. The staff bots, while primarily gameplay obstacles, have variations and secrets of their own. Some are harmless, following predictable patrols. Others are hostile, wielding weapons and hunting Gregory. Specific staff bots in certain locations will play unique audio or exhibit unusual behavior if you observe them carefully. These small touches make the numerous staff bots feel less like repeated assets and more like individual entities with quirks. The Ruin DLC expanded Security Breach's secrets significantly, adding new areas and lore revelations. Cassie's exploration of the abandoned Pizzaplex reveals additional rooms, messages, and characters. The Mimic's true nature becomes clearer through environmental clues and AR collectibles. The ambiguous ending where an elevator cable is cut has sparked extensive community debate about who actually spoke the final words. Game file analysis has provided some clarity, though interpretations of the evidence vary. This mystery extends beyond the game itself into ongoing community discussion, demonstrating how modern FNAF Secrets continue generating debate long after release. The way Security Breach presents its secrets reflects modern game design philosophy, while maintaining FNAF traditions. The collectible format of CDs borrows from countless other games with audio logs. The multiple endings and path-based unlocks feel influenced by adventure games and RPGs. Yet the environmental horror, the lore hidden in background details, the ambiguous elements requiring community interpretation, these remain distinctly FNAF. The franchise evolved its approach to secrets while preserving the core identity. The controversy around Security Breach's initial bugs and missing content created an unusual situation where the game itself became a kind of secret. Updates added new areas, fixed broken mechanics, and restored cut content, meaning the game players purchased at launch differed significantly from later versions. Data miners discovered remnants of removed features, sparking discussions about what the game was intended to be versus what shipped. The development troubles became part of the game's story. Help Wanted 2, released after Security Breach, returned to secrets hidden behind specific actions and VR interactions. The sequel built on the Princess Quest storyline while introducing new minigames and collectibles. The Marsbot transformation sequence and the various endings accessible through different choices demonstrated that even as the franchise experimented with different formats, Scott and Steel Wool maintained commitment to hiding significant content behind player action. Into the Pit Easter Eggs Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit, released in 2024, served as both a return to the franchise's survival horror roots and a celebration of its history. Based on the first story from the Fazbear Frights book series, the game compressed FNAF's essential DNA into a focused experience while packing in references, secrets, and Easter eggs that rewarded longtime fans. The game's secrets ranged from obvious homages to obscure connections that required specific FNAF knowledge to fully appreciate. The Collect the Hats arcade minigame contains one of Into the Pit's most elaborate secrets. Playing normally involves gathering 5 party hats across a simple platforming level. However, completing the game the normal way isn't the only option. On the left side of the screen, from the second white stationary platform where balloons hover, you can walk off the edge. This takes you to a hidden area where the purple guy appears, literally forcing you into the pit. This secret area references the minigames from earlier titles while providing a meta-commentary on the game's own title. The phone that becomes accessible on specific nights, particularly Night 5, enables interaction beyond just story progression. While most numbers you can dial trigger narrative events or minigames, dialing 7774648 plays audio of a springlock failure, complete with the mechanical snapping and human sounds of agony. This Easter egg connects directly to William Afton's death in the Spring Bonnie suit, an event central to FNAF 3's backstory. The number itself isn't labeled or explained anywhere in the game. Players discovered it through systematic experimentation or community sharing. making it a genuine hidden secret that rewards either persistence or collaboration. The achievement names in Into the Pit are loaded with FNAF references. Hello and ha 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 reference Balloon Boy's creepy voice lines from FNAF 3. Follow Me recalls William Afton's method of luring victims. Smile references the training tapes reminding night guards they're the face of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. 395248 is the code that unlocks the Stage 01 minigame in FNAF 3. Also the hexadecimal color code resembling Springtrap. Each achievement name rewards lore knowledge while functioning as a subtle quiz, checking if players recognize these callbacks. The secret endings accessible through specific actions demonstrate Into the Pit's commitment to player choice. The early escape ending lets you leave Jeff's Pizza before things get truly dangerous, avoiding the horror entirely by simply walking out the front door when given the objective to look for Chip and Mike. This gets you the See Your Dad achievement, a darkly comic reward for abandoning your father to his fate. While not canonical, it acknowledges player agency and the possibility of self-preservation over heroism. The bad ending, where Oswald fails to protect himself and his father from Spring Bonnie, leads to a disturbing sequence. Oswald ends up on stage with the animatronics, his voice distorted despite his body and mind appearing intact. The animatronics welcome him, implying he's been transformed into one of them, or at least possessed by the same force animating them. This ending, while not the true conclusion, provides insight into what happens to victims of the entity wearing the Spring Bonnie suit. The references to other Fazbear Fright stories appear throughout the game. Oswald's bedroom occasionally shows a poster for the Twisted Ones novel. The toys in his room mirror the FNAF 4 bedroom layout. The rigor mortis poster references Count the Ways from Fazbear Frights. The classroom blackboard displays a number sequence that resembles, though doesn't exactly match, the code used to trigger mini-games in FNAF 3, suggesting a deliberate callback to that game's secrets. A book titled Nothing Divided in Half is Nothing references the What We Found story. These are rewards for fans who've engaged with the books, showing that Into the Pit exists in conversation with the broader franchise. The Toreador March, Freddy's iconic theme, plays as remixed background music in Jeff's Pizza, blending nostalgia with the game's somber atmosphere. The song's presence throughout the franchise has made it synonymous with FNAF, so hearing it remixed for this game creates immediate recognition while adapting it to fit Into the Pit's aesthetic. The variations in how the tune plays throughout the game provide audio cues for progression while maintaining thematic consistency. The appearances of recognizable FNAF characters and animatronics throughout Into the Pit tie the book story explicitly into game continuity. While the story originated in Fazbear Frights, which has ambiguous canonicity, Into the Pit's game adaptation places it firmly within the game timeline. Seeing the original animatronics, encountering Spring Bonnie, experiencing a recreation of the missing children incident. All of this establishes these events as part of the core narrative, rather than alternate universe fiction. The minigames accessible through various triggers each contain their own secrets. Some reference other Fazbear Fright stories directly. Fetch involves a possessed animatronic dog. Count the Ways features Funtime Freddy's gruesome choices. Each minigame adapted from a Fright story serves as playable version of that tale, compressing narratives into brief interactive experiences. Finding and completing all these minigames rewards comprehensive knowledge of the book series. The environmental storytelling in Jeff's Pizza reveals the location's sad decline through visual details. The once vibrant pizzeria has decayed into a depressing shell, old equipment barely functioning, decorations faded and torn. The ball pit itself, the mechanism for time displacement central to the story, looks unsanitary and neglected. These details aren't secrets in the traditional sense, but reward observation, building the world through accumulated small touches rather than explicit exposition. The yellow thing, the organic fang-bearing entity that serves as the main threat, represents one of Into the Pit's most interesting adaptations from the book. In the original story, this creature was described in ways that left its nature deliberately ambiguous. The game's visual realization presents it as distinctly monstrous, with teeth and claws that emphasize its predatory nature. The black tears it cries, sometimes referred to as sorrow stain in the broader lore, have led fans to theorize connections to the emotional residue concepts about how agony might manifest in the FNAF universe. Though the game doesn't explicitly confirm these connections, the 3-star ending, considered canonical, requires collecting tokens throughout your playthrough and exchanging them for the birthday item at the prize counter. This ending shows Oswald saving his father and restoring normalcy to his family, the most positive resolution possible given the circumstances. The specific requirements make it an achievement for dedicated players rather than something you stumble into casually, rewarding thoroughness and item collection. The multiple variations and paths through the game encourage replaying to see all content. Different routes through Jeff's Pizza, alternative timing on specific actions, varied approaches to encounters with Spring Bonnie. All of these provide slight variations in experience. The game respects player agency while guiding toward the intended narrative, a balance that makes secrets feel organic rather than arbitrary. The rarest of the rare, beyond the well-documented secrets players have catalogued, Five Nights at Freddy's contains mysteries so obscure, so unlikely, or so deeply hidden that they exist in a space between confirmation and speculation. These are the secrets that spawn creepypastas, the elements so rarely encountered that even their existence gets debated, the details so subtle they might be coincidence rather than intentional design. This is where documentation becomes difficult, and community knowledge replaces individual discovery. Shadow Bonnie in the second game, with its 1 in a million intended probability that became 1 in 16,000 due to coding limitations, represents the ultimate rare encounter for most players. But even among documented rare events, debates persist about whether certain visual anomalies are real or imagined. Players report seeing sprites that don't match known character models, hearing audio that doesn't correspond to any documented sound files, experiencing glitches that seem too specific to be random errors. Separating real secrets from false memories or elaborate hoaxes becomes genuinely difficult. The community has documented instances where seemingly impossible combinations of events occurred. Multiple rare screens appearing simultaneously, sequences of unlikely triggers happening in rapid succession, glitches that perfectly mimicked intentional Easter eggs. Probability suggests these should happen eventually given enough playtime across the entire player base. But when they occur, they're so strange that players question their own experiences. The uncertainty is itself a form of horror, making the game world feel less stable and predictable than mechanics suggest. Unused content in game files represents secrets Scott hid from players, but not from data miners. Alternate character models, removed animations, voice lines that don't trigger under any known conditions. These elements exist in the files, but may never have been intended for players to see. Whether they count as secrets is debatable. They're discoverable through technical investigation, but not through gameplay. They reveal development process rather than intentional mystery, yet their existence fascinates the community. The Sparky the Dog hoax from the first game demonstrates how community-created mysteries can take on lives of their own. Players claimed encountering an animatronic dog that didn't officially exist, sharing blurry images and elaborate stories. Eventually, this was proven to be completely fabricated, but the legend persisted. Into the Pit's film, Homage includes a reference to Sparky's Diner, Scott's acknowledgement of this famous hoax. The fake secret became real through its impact on community culture. Some players report experiencing rare events that were never officially documented. A particular animation that played once and never again. A voice line they heard but couldn't trigger consistently. A visual effect that seemed intentional but wasn't captured in any videos. These reports are impossible to verify, but collectively create a sense that the games might contain secrets even the most dedicated investigators haven't found. The possibility keeps exploration alive. The question of whether Scott actively adds secrets in updates without announcing them creates ongoing mystery. Players notice small changes in games months or years after release. Were these always there and just undiscovered? Or did Scott silently patch in new content? Without official confirmation, the community is left to compare versions and theorize. This uncertainty makes every update potentially significant. The connection between FNAF and Scott's earlier games like Chipper and Son's Lumber Co. contains meta-secrets. The animatronic that led critics to call Chipper's characters too scary directly inspired Five Nights at Freddy's creation. References to Scott's previous work appear occasionally in FNAF games, rewards for players who followed his entire career. These deep-cut references mean nothing to most players, but everything to Scott's long-time supporters. The significance of specific numbers that appear repeatedly across games sparks numerological analysis. Does 1983 appearing in multiple contexts mean more than just marking the byte? Do other recurring numbers like 87 or 395248 have additional meanings beyond their established associations? Players look for patterns, creating complex theories about what repeated numbers might signify about release dates, hidden timelines, or encrypted messages. The debate over which details are intentional lore versus which are just aesthetic choices or technical limitations remains contentious. When you notice a pattern, is it Scott communicating something, or are you seeing meaning in randomness? The franchise rewards close analysis, but also contains elements that are simply functional or decorative. Distinguishing signal from noise requires judgment calls that different theorists make differently. The unused minigames hidden in code, but never accessible through normal gameplay, suggest Scott planned additional secrets that didn't make final versions. These remnants, discoverable through data mining, show alternate ways lore might have been revealed, or different takes on character backstories. They're tantalizing glimpses of what might have been, roads not taken in the franchise's development. The rarest secrets become legendary not just for their content, but for their difficulty to document. Videos can be faked, images can be doctored, claims can be exaggerated. When an event happens once to one player with no recording, how do we know it happened at all? The inability to prove rare encounters creates folklore within the community. Stories pass between players about the things they've supposedly seen. The meta secret underlying everything is that Scott designed FNAF to generate secrets. The games became famous partly because they rewarded investigation, spawned theories, and maintained mysteries. Every hidden element served the larger purpose of keeping players engaged and discussing their findings. In that sense, the rarest secret is the realization that the franchise itself is a giant puzzle box designed to never be completely solved, always holding back one more mystery to uncover. Conclusion: we've drifted through a decade of shadows and secrets, examining the hidden layers Scott Cawthon wove into every aspect of Five Nights at Freddy's. From the vanishingly rare shadow animatronics that crash your game to the source code messages that rewarded viewing HTML, from minigames that revealed the tragedy's deepest wounds to cheat codes that acknowledge different ways of playing, the franchise transformed secrets from simple Easter eggs into an entire design language. These weren't just fun extras. They were the heart of what made FNAF special. The reason a simple indie horror game grew into a cultural phenomenon that spawned books, movies, and endless analysis. The evolution of secrets across the franchise tells its own story. The first game's random probability events gave way to more elaborate triggers requiring specific knowledge. Hidden codes that let you skip nights evolved into codes that revealed lore. Rare screens that were purely atmospheric in early games became connected to narrative threads in later entries. Scott refined his approach, learning what resonated with the community and doubling down on discovery-based design that respected player intelligence and dedication. What stands out across all these secrets is their layered purpose. They reward skill, patience, and luck through difficult-to-trigger rare events. They acknowledge and respect different playstyles through cheat codes and multiple endings. They deepen lore for those who seek it while remaining optional for players just wanting survival horror. They build community through shared discovery and collaborative documentation. They create folklore as reports of rare encounters spread before concrete proof exists. They generate engagement that extends far beyond the actual playtime of any individual game. The community's response to FNAF Secrets demonstrates gaming culture at its best. Players didn't just passively consume what Scott created. They actively investigated, theorized, tested hypotheses, documented findings, and shared discoveries. Wikis compiled comprehensive information. YouTube channels demonstrated how to trigger obscure events. Discord servers coordinated research efforts. The collaborative approach to uncovering secrets strengthened the community's bonds and created shared experiences that transcended the games themselves. Scott's design philosophy deserves recognition for trusting players with ambiguity and challenge. He could have made everything explicit, every secret obvious, every lore detail clearly stated. Instead, he created puzzles that required community effort to solve, questions that spawned competing theories, mysteries that persisted across years and multiple releases. This respect for player intelligence made FNAF something people wanted to engage with deeply, rather than just experience superficially. The franchise's secrets also demonstrate how constraints breed creativity. Working within indie game budgets and limited development resources, Scott couldn't compete with RATLA graphics or elaborate cutscenes. So he built mystery into the structure itself, using hidden content and rare events to make relatively simple games feel infinitely deep. The approach worked brilliantly, proving that compelling secrets could rival any technical achievement in creating memorable gaming experiences. Looking forward, as new FNAF games continue releasing and expanding the universe, we can expect more secrets tailored to modern design sensibilities, while honoring the traditions established across the first decade. The balance between probability-based rarity and discovery-based hidden content will likely evolve. The integration of secrets into story revelation will probably deepen. The acknowledgement of community investigation will remain central. But the core principle of rewarding dedication and attention will persist because it's fundamental to FNAF's identity. These secrets matter because they transformed how we think about indie horror games. Before FNAF, the genre didn't typically emphasize mystery solving and community-driven investigation alongside survival mechanics. Scott's approach demonstrated that horror games could be puzzles, that player communities could be collaborators in storytelling, that secrets could be content rather than just bonus features. The influence extends far beyond FNAF into countless games that borrowed its techniques. For players encountering these secrets, whether you're discovering them for the first time, revisiting familiar mysteries with fresh perspective, or simply letting them wash over you as ambient knowledge while drifting toward sleep, they represent countless hours of collective effort. Every documented rare screen was witnessed first by someone who thought they might be hallucinating. Every discovered code was found through experimentation. Every source code message was revealed by players willing to look past surface presentation. The secrets exist as achievements of the community as much as creations of the developer. As this exploration concludes, what emerges is a portrait not just of games, but of a decade-long conversation between creator and community. Scott asking, "Can you find this?" and players responding, "Yes, and here's what it might mean," back and forth across years and releases. The secrets weren't just hidden content. They were invitations to deeper engagement, challenges to look closer, rewards for dedication, and fuel for endless theorizing. They made Five Nights at Freddy's more than entertainment. They made it a shared mystery, solved together. So whether you're a player who's hunted every Easter egg, a fan who enjoys learning about secrets others found, or someone who simply appreciates games that respect their audience enough to hide complexity beneath simplicity, the secrets of Five Nights at Freddy's stand as testament to what gaming can achieve when developers trust communities to meet their challenge. The shadow animatronics still lurk in forgotten code. Golden Freddy still slumps in impossible places. Minigames still hide fragments of tragedy. The secrets remain, waiting in the quiet hours, ready to reveal themselves to those patient enough to look. Before you go, if you enjoyed this deep dive into FNAF's hidden world, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps more than you might think, allowing us to continue creating this kind of detailed, respectful exploration of gaming secrets. Let me know in the comments which FNAF secret surprised you most, or if you've discovered anything we didn't cover here. The franchise is so rich with hidden content that there's always room for more discoveries. And if you're looking for more lore content to sleep to, check out the rest of the Night Mode Lore channel. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and remember that sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones hidden just beneath the surface, waiting for someone to care enough to find them. Sweet dreams.